Let's talk about the mobile gaming market for a second, but not in the way that we traditionally think of it. You may recall that back in September of 2023, during one of Apple's press conferences, they were talking about the A17 Pro chip and how powerful it is for the iPhones, and they announced some AAA games that will be playable natively on the iPhone 15. Those games included Death Stranding, Resident Evil Village, Resident Evil 4 Remake, and Assassin's Creed Mirage. And the question was, well, this is kind of cool that we're technologically at a point where we can run these kinds of high-fidelity games on such small devices, but will this catch on? Is there a possibility for these kinds of games to thrive in the mobile market? I was thinking to myself, technologically it's cool, but why would anyone who can afford such expensive iPhones play these games on these little screens and on a touch screen? Why wouldn't they just boot these games up on their, 4K TVs and just play these games in the most ideal way you can play them? And as it turns out, that instinct was correct, because if we look at a somewhat recent article from June 25th, 2024 from news outlet mobilegamer.biz, it seemed as though all of these AAA games on iPhone have been bombing pretty hard. Not a lot of people paid full price for these games. So it reads right here that Apple has showcased Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil Village, Death Stranding, and Assassin's Creed Mirage in its keynote over the last 12 months, all running on high-end iPhones and iPads, and they're all commercial failures. And right here we have some stats and estimates based on information that we know. So for Assassin's Creed Mirage, for example, it was downloaded approximately 123,000 times, but of those 123,000 downloads, only 3,000 people actually paid the full $50 to play the full game. So there's sort of this free trial aspect where you can play a small portion of the game for free. The incentive being, download it for free, try it out, and then if you like it, buy the full thing. So of those 123,000 downloads, only 3,000 people decided to shell out $50 to play Assassin's Creed Mirage on their iPhone. I think the pricing model of this is a huge part of why this is flopping. A lot of mobile gamers just aren't used to spending that kind of money, that kind of premium price tag on a game. They usually spend $5 to $10 max. That is the base price to try a game out. Once they get sucked into a game's microtransactions, that they might spend a lot of money on because they're sucked into the experience because it was cheap or, best case scenario, free to download to start with, but then the game slowly psychologically manipulates you into spending little bits at a time that then adds up over time, and you end up spending, hundreds before you know it. That's a whole other conversation. So to have something that's $50 that is completely isolated to the iPhone and iPad ecosystem, that's a huge asking price for essentially a lesser version of Assassin's Creed Mirage, whose graphics fidelity is just it's pretty good for something that runs on mobile devices, but why not spend on a version of the game that looks far better on your 4K OLED TV running on a console or on a powerful PC? And for the people who can't afford to upgrade to the latest iPhone, they wouldn't buy these kinds of games anyway, and these kinds of consoles and high-end PCs. So just the market really isn't there, and it doesn't quite make a whole lot of sense. How they got this number of under 3,000 people having paid full price for Assassin's Creed Mirage on iOS mobile devices is that it made revenue of roughly $138,000 to date, according to app figures. And so you divide that by $50 and you get roughly under 3,000 people. And the only way this game makes revenue is, essentially by having people purchase the full experience. Not many people actually did that. Same thing goes for the Resident Evil releases as well as Death Stranding. So the Resident Evil 4 Remake, for example, it was downloaded 357,000 times. A lot of people checked out sort of the free trial aspect of it, the short piece that you can play for free before you have to pay the premium price in order to access the rest of the game. The overall estimated revenue of Resident Evil 4 Remake is $208,000. If you divide that by its price point of $30 that unlocks the full game, then that indicates that roughly 7,000 people of those 357,000 downloads decided to pay full price to play this game on their iPhone or iPad. Pretty abysmal results, honestly. Resident Evil Village is, within that area of folks who decided to pay for this game. 370,000 downloads, but just 92,000 in revenue. $92,000, that is. Divide that by $16 to unlock the full game, and that's around 5,750 people who decided to shell out that money. And then Death Stranding is even worse in terms of results because there is no free trial for this game. You just have to pay $20 to play this game at all. And so it's not generated enough downloads to register in App Figures tracking data. But based on the fact that the estimated revenue for this game is $212,000 in revenue, you divide that by its price tag of $20, and you can estimate that roughly 10,600 downloads have been tracked for this game since it launched on January 29th, 2024. Around 10,000 people decided to buy this game and shell out full price. That's honestly for these AAA games with big IP names behind them, that's fairly piss poor results that I don't think generated profits for these entities who did spend money to port these games over. Now, data's a little more optimistic if you look at results from another data firm named App Magic, but not by much. The numbers are a little higher if we go by their numbers, but it's still fairly abysmal results. So Assassin's Creed Mirage, it is estimated based on App Magic's data that 5,750 players have paid to unlock the full game. For Resident Evil 4, around 15,000 people have unlocked the full game. Resident Evil Village, around 34,000 decided to pay for the full game. And for Death Stranding, around 23,000. Even then, we're looking at figures that haven't even broken, 100,000 units. And this is, tons of people own iOS devices. Well, these specifically run on sort of iPhone 15 devices, and there's the question of how many people own the specific version of the iPhone that's powerful enough to run these. But it should still be substantial enough where, you might expect higher numbers if you wanted to profit off of these games. That's just not what's happening. And the analysts kind of, I think, hit the nail in the head. Looking at the top-performing mobile premium games, you can see that many are originally indie titles that have simpler controls, prioritize unique art styles over high-end graphics, and are suited for shorter play sessions. That's another thing. These games are very campaign-driven, and you need to really get the most out of them, you need to set some time aside and play these games for at least 1 or 2 hours on end. A lot of mobile gamers, they are there for just a couple minutes while they're making a quick stop somewhere, taking a little break. They get some gameplay out, and then they put their phone away. Games like Resident Evil, Assassin's Creed, and the Death Stranding video games, they are not suited for that kind of mobile gaming experience. These games are not tailor-made to be mobile-friendly or to appeal to mobile gaming audiences. The pricing model is brought up. The fact that usually for premium games and indie titles, people pay $5 to $10, and that's where you get to see, decent results. But all of these games are above that price point. And for mobile versions of these games, while, they are the full-fledged experiences for these AAA games, there's still ultimately lesser versions that are asking for a decent premium price point, and a lot of people are just not going to gravitate towards these versions. They're going to buy the version that they can get the most bang for their buck. And so if you buy these games on Steam, for example, not only can you play them on your computer, but if you get a Steam Deck, you already have that portable experience with better controls and better, potentially better graphics, or just a better experience than, the itty-bitty mobile kind of touchscreen form of controlling these games. For me, it makes sense, a whole lot of sense, that these AAA games flopped on these devices. But then what about something like the Nintendo Switch or, old portable consoles? Why did those succeed over the, iPhone and its gaming experiences? Well, I think because those are dedicated gaming devices, and you know exactly why you're buying those hardware for, and the games that are released for those portable hardware are made to take full advantage of those kinds of gaming experiences and hardware. So the Switch, for example, the fact that it's a hybrid and you can take it on the go, but also dock it on your TV super easily, that makes it ideal to have all kinds of gaming experiences there. And the fact that they are dedicated gaming consoles mean that people, buy those hardware with the very specific purpose of using them to game. Whereas with like mobile devices, they are very much like glance and put away kinds of devices. If you get notifications and you got a bit of time to do a little touchscreen thing, then yeah, that's kind of what you use mobile devices like phones for. Whereas with dedicated gaming hardware, you've got the buttons and the comfortability of the design of the hardware itself that's specifically suited for gaming, and so you're more incentivized to like have maybe potentially longer play sessions. Not to mention, iPhone doesn't have like exclusives. You know what I mean? These are all third-party games that you can play elsewhere that are better played elsewhere. Something like Nintendo Switch and DS and PSP and PS Vita. At least those had exclusives, or if you want to play these games that are only released on those consoles, you have to get those consoles. And so that is incentive to purchase those hardware and engage with these games that are uniquely suited for those devices or uniquely made for those devices. Having third-party games that have already been out for a while, there's nothing new here to incentivize people to purchase these third-party games that have been out for a while en masse. So just across the board, I'm like, this is not surprising in the least bit, and not a great start for developers being incentivized to port their games over to iOS devices. Then again, it's early days for this kind of porting of AAA games into powerful mobile devices. Who knows? Maybe this kind of stuff will gain traction over time as this becomes more normalized, or as, maybe Apple delves more into the gaming division. But with the current model and with the current way that they're doing things and the current market that they're trying to appeal to, it doesn't make sense. And I feel like future such releases will also flop like this. These are not even like decent numbers. It's like abysmal numbers, like not worth it at all to put any sort of investment into these ports kinds of numbers. And so I think seeing results like these will slow down this trend of porting high-end AAA games over. We'll see what they'll do to try to kind of change this trend so that these kinds of games will sell more. But as things currently stand, I don't think this model and this kind of porting will really take off. But that's one man's take and analysis of why this happened the way it did, why AAA ports are flopping on mobile devices and flopping very hard. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on this future where AAA games are ported over to mobile. Do you think this will one day gain traction? And what do you think these companies need to do so that these games gain that kind of traction? Do you think there is a future where these kinds of games can thrive on mobile devices, or will they always be intended for that, sit on the couch, console or PC gaming experience? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.